Most people seem to exist in a space of low level anxiety, depression, or some other kind of mental health concern. One of the largest reasons for this being because most people live in a low level state of having their autonomic nervous system activated, meaning that most people are actively living in a state of fight or flight in their daily lives. What this often causes is for us to question our intuition, not trust others, go into a place of suspicion when there's not necessarily a need to be there, causes us to often step in our own ways, to cause issues in our lives that we don't consciously recognize we're the ones who are also the ones causing them. And ultimately, it causes a lot of people to prevent themselves from reaching levels of success that they otherwise would easily be able to achieve. Uh, there are ways to alleviate this, some of these ways being physical manifestations of autonomic regulation in the body, techniques such as actively shaking the body, or I think a lot of people have discussed recently, especially for women, flexing like the hip flexors and stretching in certain ways that yogic poses suggest, and that will often unlock various past traumas. But what I find is even more important in the more metaphysical sense, because that's more of my expertise, is to track the clues, meaning keep track of what is going wrong and why and potentially how, if you have that level of awareness, and to follow the internal cues that lead to that route. For example, I found myself a couple of years back going through this abandonment wound that I didn't realize that I had, and it was showing its ugly head in the relational realm that I was in. It was preventing me from wanting to go deeper, to form connections, to really set down roots when I was in a new place I had just moved to. And the direction that that led me to was this memory that I had stored from my childhood, where a parent had left me alone in a grocery store, and I was immediately catapulted into a place of panic. Following the actions I was taking and tracing them back to the emotions, and therefore allowing me to be able to trace it back to this memory, assisted me in using the technique from Alan Watts that is rewriting the story, which means you go into the memory and the emotion that was felt during that memory, change what transpires within the imagination of the memory, and also transform the emotion that you have tied to said memory. As a result, what that does is it completely shifts and often alleviates where it is that that story comes from, and it will often assist us in alleviating the autonomic regulation that might be throwing us off. Sometimes it takes many attempts and many memories that we need to go back into and adjust, and other practices that may need to be paired along with this practice. But sometimes it just takes the one time. And I found that by doing or by following those steps of rewriting the story, I found some pretty lovely success, which has been amazing. All of this is to say, my name is Sam. I found myself in a state of depression and anxiety for about a decade of my youth, and this is one of the techniques that I've picked up along the way that has gotten me out of that place and more so into a space of being on my spiritual path. So if you're interested in learning more or in working with me, please reach out.